we have seen streamers who have, just taken a very, very negative view, and then we end up with these like waves of backlash. And
starting an indie game studio is tough. From tight budgets to small teams to making your mark on an oversaturated industry. Passion and drive is what pushes these creators forward. And today, we're about to find out what it actually takes to build a game. Joining us here on the show is Gina Nelson, the co-founder of Oxalis Studios, the makers of Moonfrost. Gina's journey hasn't been easy. She was driven by her love for games and art, and today, we're going to hear from her as she shares the journey of how she built her vision. Let's welcome Gina to the show. Hey, Gina! How are you?
Hi. Yeah, good. How are you?
Good. I'm actually... Okay, I gotta pause for a second because this is actually quite a fangirl moment for me. Because I don't know if you've seen the video that we uploaded last week here on the channel. I really enjoyed Moonfrost. And so from playing Moonfrost, it diverted me to your YouTube channel wherein you share a lot of the internal stuff that you go through as the boss witch. So talk us through that. What's it like being the boss witch of Oxalis Studios?
Well, it's a job that I love. So let's start there. And it's not always what I was doing. But, I love my job. I love my team. I love running the studio with my co-founder, Rick. And I do the art direction here as well. So, to be honest, in the beginning, I was kind of thinking about, we were thinking about, what do we call ourselves? And I just thought, I've been to loads of conferences and I've been in loads of meeting rooms and everyone introduces themselves as hello, I am CEO so-and-so, I am COO, this and this. And by the end of it, I couldn't remember who anybody was, not ever. So I just at some point I went home and I thought about it and I was like, all right, well, she's definitely the boss, also probably a witch. Boss witch, that sounds great. Everyone's going to remember that. So
yeah.
So it just kind of stuck.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if they remember you as Gina Nelson or the co-founder of Oxalis Studios. What matters is they call you the boss witch.
There we go. That's it. That's all I care about.
But of course, for those who are watching that aren't quite familiar with what the game is, I would love to hear it. Let's imagine that the audience is in front of us right now. They're meeting the boss witch for the very first time. How would you pitch Moonfrost to all of us?
Right. Pitching it to all of you. You're putting me on the spot here. So essentially, Moonfrost is a farming life sim RPG. So if you're looking at games like Stardew Valley or Animal Crossing or The Sims even, Zelda Breath of the Wild, it's all of those things wrapped together in a very, what we're calling a next-gen pixel art game. I don't think there's been any pixel art game that's been made in the same way that we've made Moonfrost before. So it's made by a very, experienced team, very professional team. And that's, essentially what it is. We've got a lot of multiplayer in the game. We've got a lot of sort of social aspects in the game. All of our systems have been built with a lot of depth to them. So, when we're talking about referencing games like The Sims, for instance, unlike other games that are quite similar, where when you're doing house customization, it's, building things with big modular pieces, we're letting players build their dream home sort of wall for wall, right? We're talking about being able to move your coffee cup from your bedside table to, your bed, things like that, really little kind of details that were really important to us that give the game a lot of depth. And I think all of our systems that we're building, we're trying to have these kind of depths. This kind of depth. So hopefully it's the kind of game that people who love those games will love. And it's the kind of game that is going to keep people playing for a really long time.
But more than that, I would say that this is one of the most enjoyable games that I've encountered so far within the blockchain space. So this is something that is also very special to me and something that I will also not forget. So let's dive into the game. How did it happen? You mentioned that you were somewhere else before and now you're the co-founder of Oxalis. How did you guys conceptualize? How did you guys build Moonfrost?
Yeah, so I've been working in games for a long time. I've been in games for 15 years now. So I've made a lot of games. I've worked for a lot of studios, always on the art side, and sort of ended up basically leading art teams because I touched so many different aspects of the art pipeline. So, I knew how to do the animation side, the 3D side, the concept side, all of those things. So I was leading art teams, was doing the art direction on various projects. At some point, I ended up working with Rick at the studio that he'd previously founded. So I led the art team there. And then I left them and went over to Mediatonic for a few years, who've since been acquired by Fall Guys. So they were working on Fall Guys at the same time as the projects that I was working on. So I was leading pretty big art teams there and doing the art direction on those projects there as well. And then at some point, I think probably honestly just got a little bit jaded, doing the same sort of thing over and over, and reached a point where I was wondering if this is what I want to do forever. So I started chatting to Rick again. We'd had like a good few years break at that point, and he was looking to start something new. I was thinking about starting something new. So it just kind of made sense. We came together and we thought, all right, well, let's start thinking about what kind of games we could be making. And at that point, like he had done the mobile version of Stardew Valley. So he had a lot of insight into that over there, and had spent a lot of time thinking about what could have been done better, what could be improved, right? Because a lot of the games that we were seeing that were coming out, that were like basically just clones of Stardew, right? And they followed a very similar formula where it was like, one or two people making like a top-down, front-on sort of game, very, very similar, different like art style, different theme maybe, but often with the same, problems in the designs and things like that. And we were just kind of thinking, well, we're both very experienced in making games. We've been making games for a really long time. Like, what does all of this look like if we have a very experienced team of people coming in, tackling a similar sort of game? What can we do there? So that's really, that's really the beginnings of Moonfrost and how we were thinking about it. And to be honest, actually very early on, like we were talking to some movie studios who, we were looking at different IPs that we could use, just because starting a new studio is a very hard thing to do. So especially starting a new studio where, you're wanting to do an original IP as your first game, it's like, it's very, very, very difficult. So we thought like maybe we could work with IPs and do something there. But then ultimately Web3 blew up, and it was the perfect opportunity for us to actually make this game that we'd been talking about for, like a year prior to that. So we jumped right in there, and here we are.
That sounds lovely. So how long has the team been working on Moonfrost at this point?
So probably, trying to think, because the team has changed in size, and, we've been through ups and downs and things, but probably anywhere between, 2 and 3 years at this point.
Ooh, two or 3 years. So what's it like? Well, obviously, your role would be different from the other people who are part of the team, but I would like to hear what's it like being part of the studio.
Yeah. So, my role's a little bit different, but I'm also very much embedded in the dev team. So I touch a lot of the dev side of things. In fact, I've got sprint work on me, and I've got deadlines and things like that, which I need to meet as well, because I've got skills that are part of, like, I am a part of the art team, right? Like, I have to contribute to this. We're a small team. We have to wear many different hats. I can't just sit back and be like, hey, I'm running this, like, whatever, leave me alone. No, I touch various aspects of the game as well. So for us as a studio, we're fully remote, so we don't have an office space. Everyone works from home. Animoca, who are one of our investors, they have an office in London. They're very kind, and they let us hot desk there whenever we like. So a lot of the London-based team anyway, will sometimes, be in the office there. So we get to see each other there. But some of our team are in different parts of the world as well. We've got people in Armenia, Bulgaria, Spain, Scotland as well, all sorts. So everyone is working from home. Our team is quite close. I think we're pretty flexible as well. And the team of, I think are all really invested in this game and trying to make it work. Like, we've seen people come and go on this project. We've faced a lot of difficulties, as any startup faces. Like, this team has, been through all of it. And and everyone really believes in what we're making, I think. So it's, to me anyway, it's a big difference to maybe a lot of other projects I've worked on where people are just coming in doing their job. This feels very much like people want to see this succeed, and that's awesome for me.
That really is awesome. I've actually been playing the game for over a week now. You guys are in early access right now. I gotta say, I haven't been progressing with the quests as much because I've been investing my time and energy trying to min-max the game and try to get started on building as fast as possible. Because whenever I see all of the house hunters, I get really jealous. Like, I want my house to be like that. And it's so cool how you guys are just doing all of this. So let's talk something about like the story of the game, because so far I've only met 2 NPCs. We've got Ash and I believe Walter, if I remember correctly. Yeah. Well, what was it like thinking about what story are we gonna push into this game? Because I have some complaints about Ash. I have some complaints.
Yeah.
I thought
it's a love-hate relationship.
Exactly. I thought I was going to enjoy my time talking to this NPC that's going to teach me all about how to play the game. But then she pulls on a 180 and she's sassy all of a sudden. So talk us through how you guys have been designing the game and the story behind it.
Ash is so sassy, but when you get things right and it feels good and Ash is happy, you're going to be like, yes, finally did the right thing. So we have a whole cast of NPCs. We are building them slowly. And again, like I said before, we have a really small team. So things just take time for us to do. But we have a whole cast of NPCs. Ultimately, like high level, the story is basically one day a second moon appears in the sky and you're like, oh my God, what is this? It starts raining frost onto our, onto our Earth. It's very destructive. We've got a lot of, people's houses are breaking. There's all sorts of things are going wrong. But we find these sort of big frost shards, these big crystals have got energy and power that, certain people are able to harness. So you, for instance, are one of those people. You play as a frost hunter, and your job is to rebuild the world, basically. So we will see frost fall from time to time, and it's going to, be able to do all sorts of different things. And you are going to be able to go around and collect this and find it. And our NPCs, for instance, are not frost hunters, so they don't have these abilities. They can't harness the powers of frost in the same way that you can. So that's sort of high level. That's the story. What we wanted was something that didn't have a definitive ending, but rather a premise that we could build an entire world around. That was really important to us because this is not a game that we expect people to pick up and then, just get to the end and finish playing. Like, this is a very social game. It's a very big game. And what we're hoping is that it, becomes people's hobbies and that it's something that they're going to play for a really long time. So it doesn't make sense for this to have a story that just ends one day. What you are going to be seeing is a lot of lore and story coming in through the NPCs that you talk to and how they are experiencing the world changing around them as well. So as things happen, the NPCs are going to tell you about them. They're going to talk to you about all sorts of different things. And, hopefully we're going to have a lot of different NPCs in this game. We've designed so many of them. We should have... we've been teasing one of the new NPCs coming in quite soon. So, like you say, you've met Ash, you've met Walter. We've got, all of our shops in the game have got owners who are going to be running those. We've got a bunch of other characters as well. And in fact, talking about NPCs, something that I think a lot of people don't necessarily realize is, from the beginning, we've always planned to have character customization in the game. So, we really want you to be able to play as yourself, whoever that is that you want to be. But because we wanted to get this game out to players really quickly, we were like, oh, we need someone for them to play as. What do we do? Okay, we've got Ava. Right, great. Let's stick her in the game. People can play as her. And then at some point we were like, oh, we only have a female character. What are we going to do? We've created Kyung, who was basically our Korean romance boy, because we wanted to have a cast of romanceable characters, and we tested animations with him. We were like, all right, great. He can be our male character for now so that players can start playing the game. They can start giving us feedback, things like that. But in the end, both of these characters will be joining our NPC cast eventually. And then, you'll be able to chat to them and do all sorts of things. And you'll be playing as, you yourself, as how it should be.
Okay. Oh, okay. I got a little bit excited there. I already thought that the characters as themselves, like I would love to like have some customization. Obviously, that's something that us gamers always go through when we start a game, right? And sometimes that actually takes more hours than the tutorial, just getting your customization up.
Oh yeah, I play like that. How about that?
Yeah, aesthetic above anything else. So
yeah,
you got me excited over there. That feels like a low-key leak. Maybe other players have already heard of this story, but for me, so you're actually meant to sort of date the characters that you're playing right now in early access. Okay.
In the long run, that's the plan for them. But we needed someone that everyone could play as, because building a character customization system is a big job, and we want to do it properly, right? Like, this is going to be a big chunk of the game when it comes out. So I know that, there's been a lot of, basically, we read everything, right? Like, we read every single comment about the game, whether it's on YouTube, on Twitter, on Discord, whatever it is. Like we hear everything that's being said. And one of the things we do pick up from time to time is people wanting more variety in the characters that they're playing as, like between Ava and Kyung, there's not much there, but it is coming, I promise.
Oh my goodness, that is so exciting
one day
to hear. I can't wait for that. But okay, let's go back to the team again and the success of everything so far. What have been the biggest challenges that you guys have had to go through getting to this point?
I think one of the biggest challenges for us has been probably over the last year, especially the sentiment around Web3 in the last year. Right, like when we jumped into the space, to be honest, like both Rick and I were we were, like I said before, we were pretty jaded about a lot of things in the games industry. We'd reached a point where like platforms were taking such big cuts from developers. A lot of games coming out were basically just direct clones of one another. It became really hard to make anything that was original. You'd spend, like, making games takes time, and you'd spend years making a game that was a clone of another game, and then if it didn't perform well, it wasn't in like the top 20 or whatever, it would get canned. So it was kind of like we'd see this happen over and over and over again, and it's that it takes its toll on you as someone who's passionate about making games. It really takes its toll on you. So when we saw this kind of boom happening in Web3, we were so excited. We were like, oh my goodness, right, this is different, this is new tech, people are thinking about things in different ways. It was the first time in a long time that I've seen people trying to solve problems in games in innovative ways, just thinking about things differently, not scared to try things out. All of that has been fantastic, and it's been awesome and exciting to see. But at the same time, because of all of that, it meant a lot of investment was going into Web3. There was so much money going into the space, probably way too much money. And we ended up seeing tons of projects that were just scams, that were just, like rug pulls, or, games that had been funded that weren't even being made by teams that ever made games before. And the result of that then has been a very, very negative sentiment around Web3 games in general to anyone who is not in Web3 games. And I think for us, that has been one of the hardest things to navigate. And that's all come out really over the space of the last year, where we see a lot of gamers and players who love these kinds of games who are throwing a lot of backlash at us for being in Web3, right? Because there's just negativity around, as soon as you mention NFTs, people are like, don't want to touch that unless they're in Web3, right? So, and this is kind of, this has been very much, I think, just the result of the amount of projects that have, created this bad rep for for all of us. And, now anyone who is building within the space who are, genuinely creating good games and projects they're passionate about are struggling because, we're having to constantly fight this backlash with an audience who would otherwise love our game. So I think for me, anyways, that has been one of the biggest challenges for sure. And I'm not entirely sure if that's going to change. I hope that people just make their mind up about the game when they play it. That's the best we can hope for, really.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Obviously, we also cover a lot of like Web3 games on the channel. And even though our role is to just talk about these games, we get some backlash too for giving these games platforms, solely because people have been so jaded with the term Web3 NFTs, like you said earlier. But speaking of that, all of the backlash, I have actually seen some of them when I was doing some research on the game. I'm actually curious as to how you guys handled that situation, because I imagine that it must have been hard discussing all of this with people who may have already formed an opinion with the space.
Yeah, so I think we have tried our best to be very personal with things, and this is where Jace has been absolutely incredible. For those who don't know, Jace is our community manager, marketing lead. So if you're in our Discord or on our Twitter, you'll be interacting with Jace a lot. Generally, our view has been not to just ignore things, but to listen to people and to talk to them and to try and answer their questions as much as we can do. I think we have learned a lot as we've gone as well, because we found that for some time we thought, well, maybe it would be a better idea if we didn't say, upfront that we were using NFTs, because we wanted people to be able to make their minds up about the game. And then we found that actually people thought that was dishonest, that we weren't saying we're using NFTs. Now we're saying we are using NFTs, but the response to that has been, oh, wow, you're using NFTs, I don't want to play the game. So it's been a lot of like, we're not entirely sure, like, what the best answer is, but we just try our best, to be honest, really, with people. Anyone who's got questions can ask us, we respond. And like I said before, we read everything, absolutely every single thing that comes our way. We read it, we discuss it internally, all of those things. So we just try to respond to people, and hopefully they're happy. And to be honest, we have managed to, I think, sway some people, because very often we'll find that if we explain to people why we're doing what we're doing, or ask them questions like why do you feel this way about what we're doing, they're often not entirely sure. It'll often be like, oh, because the streamer said it was bad, but without necessarily understanding what the thinking is behind that. So, my only request really for players is to be able to make their own minds up about things, right? Because something we have seen a lot of, and like you will know this as someone who is streaming and doing interviews and things like that, is that generally if you take a negative approach on anything, you get more views, right?
Yeah,
that's how it goes. Like taking a positive and very lighthearted approach on something doesn't get you loads of views. It just doesn't, right? Like that's just how the internet works. So we love streamers. We love talking to streamers. We love, that people are covering the game and giving us feedback and reviews and honest reviews. Like that means the absolute world to us. We watch all of it. It's like, I can't hope for, more than that. But at the same time, we have seen streamers who have, just taken a very, very negative view. And then we end up with these like waves of backlash. And, while I understand that does push their view account, and it makes a lot of sense to me why they would take these kind of approaches. It's very damaging to us as developers, very, very damaging, and it's a hard thing for us to navigate. So I would ask that people look at what we're doing and look at us as the developers, and just make their own minds up, because there's only so much we can do really on our side.
Yeah. We've been going on a negative slope in this interview. How about something positive? What was a moment for you wherein you felt like, oh, we're doing great, we're doing good. We finally see some traction pick up in the company.
Well, one of the things was when we released our trailer, our first sort of, announcement trailer, which, we put together. We were really excited about it. What we were seeing was basically a lot of other studios, especially studios in Web3, were kind of like making these really fancy trailers, right? Like they were getting these, like big CG kind of cinematic trailers, and we were like, oh, we're just gonna do like a ropey gameplay trailer, like. There's going to be like the trees are falling over. That they've got like a weird bounce thing. We're like, it's fine. Loads of placeholder stuff. It's early development. Just put it out there. And it ended up with over 8 million views. And we were like, this is crazy. But that validated so much for us. Like people like the art, they like the music, they like the look of the gameplay. They were seeing all the kind of, like the next gen pixel art stuff that we were doing. And that was just awesome. Like that just blew my mind so much.
So would you say that all of the growth you guys have had so far is completely organic?
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of it's, we talk to a lot of people. So a lot of it comes from that as well. It's, us discussing things with people, saying like, and building relationships, long-term relationships. But like, we're not paying for marketing. We've not spent anything on marketing. So, I really, really believe in this whole building alongside the community. To me, that has been the biggest game changer. And I wouldn't want to build a game in another way again, I don't think, because, previously, historically, for myself and probably a lot of other people working in games, you sort of build in stealth mode, you're like undercover for 3 years, whatever. Whereas like no one can know what we're making. It's top secret because what if they steal it, or like what if this happens or whatever, like don't tell anyone. And we've never been like that. We've just been like, well, put everything out there. If you design a character, you make an artwork or whatever, and you're excited about it, post it online. That's fantastic. That's awesome. And it's been, like that for everything on this project. And to me, that's been really, really exciting. But it's also meant that a lot of our community growth and our marketing has come from that, right? Because we're not trying to sell something to players that we don't have. Like, we're not trying to sell the end vision of this game. We're just showing you what we have. Like, this is what we've built. This is the state it's in. It's buggy. You can play it. And, and we're asking people's opinion the whole time as well on things. So, yeah, it has been organic, but not in the way of necessarily just people sharing things, but in the way of like us talking to everyone constantly and showing the community what it is we have. So we have a very engaged community, a very active community. It's not one of those like Twitter accounts that's just dead, that has no comments or anything like that. Like we're talking to people constantly, and like that's been awesome.
And actually, what I've found with your approach in Moonfrost is that it's not just the main account of Moonfrost that's active. It's the entire team that's like engaging. I've seen, I think Jace, and if I remember correctly, Joe also replied to me. They were tagging us in their video. They were very happy that we actually gave honest feedback. So I really appreciate that from the team. But that is very cool. With the Web3 space, people always like to talk about ownership and the ability to take control of what could happen in the game. But before you guys even dive into the whole NFT mechanic within your game, you're already giving the decision of what direction the game is going towards to the players and to the fans of your games. So that is a very refreshing approach, I would say. Like, I think it's the first time I've ever encountered a game that actually did this. You guys are actually very
many games do it.
Yeah,
I don't think many games do it, but in the end of the day, this game is for our players, right? Like, if the players don't want what we're building, then who are we making it for? So, right down to small things like, we've been building fishing, which is very exciting, and it's been, there've been a lot of requests for it for a long time now. One of the first things we did with fishing was, we had a bunch of different designs on paper. So we had our designs, we put them to the community on Discord. We were like, what, like, these are the designs, like just very, very rough diagrams, basically. This could happen, that could happen, whatever. What do you think of that? And something that I really love is that one of the things we got back from that was someone literally sent us like their own version of fishing. Like, why don't you guys try this instead? And it's a good design. Like, that's awesome. Like, that is how invested our community are in what we're building. So yeah, it's definitely different. But like you say, if the community don't like what we're making, then who are we making it for? So we bring them along for as much as we can.
Has there been a situation wherein you guys showed a preview of something you wanted to release in the game and the community was like, no, please don't do that? Was there ever an incident like that?
I think probably less that people have disliked what we've made, but more that we've had feedback on different things. So we would, change the controls, for instance. We'd have people play it. They'd say, oh, actually, they like this more. Then we change back to, what controls used to be. Little bits like that. But I don't think we've ever outrightly had anyone like really just hate the systems we've made. Not ever. But we have gotten a lot of feedback, which has been fantastic, because like we don't have a QA department, right? So we don't have game testers testing the game. It's really like we're building the game, we're testing the game, and then we put it out to players. And like what we have seen is players play this game very differently to how we play this game. Which is incredible. But like you guys do things different. Like it's and they're way better at the game than we are, right? So we discover a lot through our players. Like I think a great example of that would be like before we put out build mode, we tested it a lot. Like we played it all the time. We were like customizing things, making everything nice, and we spent a lot of time, focusing on little details like how do the corner pieces of walls like match up? Like what does that feel like when that when you place that, or when walls cut away so that you can look into buildings, all of that. And we thought, okay, like we've got this map, we've got it contained, we built all these cliff edges and things so that it's it's this nice contained map. And then we gave players build mode, and people weren't building houses, they were just building staircases to try and get off the map, which were like things that we didn't even think you could do in the game. But like people do all these things, but then it's brilliant as well, because then we see how everyone is playing it, we get their feedback, we learn a lot of different things. So I don't think anyone's ever outrightly hated anything we've given them, but we learn a lot from the way people play and from our community.
That's hilarious. I imagine that maybe the thought process behind that was, how in the olden days you would have to go to a secret part of the map to find a secret treasure chest filled with loot.
Yeah.
Maybe that person was just trying to get off the map thinking that, oh, maybe they have a bonus thing hidden outside of the map, but I'm sure that
it wasn't just one person. It was like loads of players. But these are just things that hadn't even crossed our mind to do, and like tons and tons and tons of players were playing the game this way. We learn, we build.
Did you panic when you found out? Wait, what? There's a bug that they're exploiting right now. Was there like a sort of panic?
Yeah, and we sort of like sit down, emergency meeting. Players are doing this, and we're like, what? Why are they doing this? Who plays the game this way?
Apparently, a lot of people do outside of your team. That is so funny. Well, we talked about all sorts of things with the game too, but one thing that I really want to commend you guys, I mean, I've already commended a lot of the things, the art direction. Obviously, you guys perfected it, because you wouldn't be awarded with the Game Awards if you hadn't done such a fantastic job. But I gotta say, one of the things that really moved me with the game is the music selection. There's just too much feels. Did you guys produce the music yourselves?
Yeah, so the music was the music was composed by Dan, who was actually on the project he had a split role. So he was doing the principal art and also the music for the game. And he actually designed the Fall Guy from Fall Guys and did, all the visual direction on that before he joined us. So I have an episode on my channel coming out this week on Thursday where I'm talking to him about the music of Moonfrost. So we worked very differently. I'm not going to give away so much, but it's
have to wait for the vlog.
On that. Yeah. But we work very differently on the music in Moonfrost to any other project I've worked on before. And that was very meaningful in that, other games, music is kind of like done very separately. So it's sort of like either added on in the end or, if it's done, alongside development, it comes in, you put it in the game and that's it. But because his role was split between both art and music, we treated a lot of the music in the same way that we do concept art. And that, I think, was very, very different because the music became a big part of our creative voice in the game. So a lot of how the world feels is also because of how the world sounds, not just because of how it looks. And that's come across in all our characters, all of that. But you will hear a lot more about that in the next episode on my channel. Yeah.
She's getting us all excited. So I would suggest that the people who are watching this, you better make sure that you're subscribed to the Diary of a Boss Witch. Gotta make sure that you guys know all the intel. Actually, let's talk about that too, because that also feels like what you're doing, the approach that you guys are doing with Moonfrost. We're in the whole process of designing these characters, the elements in the game, you guys just share it to the community. It feels like that's what your YouTube account is also about. So talk us through what got you started with creating content as the Boss Witch.
So honestly, one of the reasons is because Jace keeps nagging me and saying, you need to make more stuff and put it online. Show people what you're doing. Show people, send me videos. It's like constantly Jace wanting content that he can put on Twitter. And then the result of that was that I started getting a lot of requests for podcasts. People wanting to do interviews and podcasts with me, start asking the community what would they like to see. And a lot of the things that I got back were not just about Moonfrost, but like about what I do, about my job, bits like that. And then at the same time, towards the end of last year, I was giving mentorships, which were basically for creatives moving into wanting to start their own studios, their own businesses, right? Because a lot of people who are in my position wouldn't have come from an art background, right? A lot of people who are like CEOs or whatever have been running studios. They've come from biz dev or something like that. But very often it's not the creatives who are doing this. So I was giving these mentorships, which was about that and, about, dealing with the stress and how my whole lifestyle had to shift to be able to do this job. And basically just thought, well, like, why not just start a channel, which is just basically all of that. So it's not just Moonfrost. It's like, it's my life. It's, it's my lifestyle. It's how I'm dealing with stresses. It's what I do to, just generally like what I do basically, or like, what does the life of someone who does this job look like? So yeah, Moonfrost is a lot of it, but all the other aspects are there as well. So that's what the channel is really. And I've been amazed by the reception of it. It's just crazy. Like, I started this channel 5 weeks ago. It's on nearly 8,000 subscribers now. So I can't thank you all enough. Like, this is, my heart is like, oh my God, it's crazy.
That is just amazing to me when you talk about it that way, because everything that you guys have been putting out, it's not something that's like super tailor-made or polished. Mm-hmm. It's raw and authentic, and you guys just push it out, and somehow it reaches the right people and it gains more traction.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. That's really what it's all about. When I was thinking about it, I thought like, this is not something, I don't want this to take away from my day-to-day. So I don't want to be sitting editing loads. I don't want to be planning things. I don't want to be writing scripts. I don't want to be doing any of that, because that makes it false to me in a way, and that takes away from my actual job and my day-to-day and what I'm doing, right? Like I am very busy, like really, really busy. So I didn't want that. So most of the content that you see on there is literally, it's very reactive. It's me going, this has happened. Okay, let me put my thoughts down. Or even like not the last episode, the episode before that, we were at the Red Bull Gaming Sphere in London, and we were there, and it's a networking space. Joe was there, Nunu was there. They'd been working the whole day. They were showing Moonfrost off, and I was kind of like watching Joe, and like I've been to a few different events with him. I've seen him network, and he's one of our artists. But like networking is something Joe does really well. So I was like, why don't we just like, do they have any rooms here? Can we just have a chat about networking and see if, you know, if that's anything useful that people would like to watch? And he was like, yeah, all right. So we found a room, we sat and we had a conversation, but none of it was planned, none of it scripted. So it's not about that. It's really just, you know, sharing things like as they come, you know, as genuinely as I can do.
That's so cool. This is exactly, I've watched that video. That's why I messaged you. I'm not going to give you my business card at the end of this interview. Like, don't worry about it. We're going to have a fun conversation. And I hope you're having fun so far. I think Jace won in that conversation then, because you're just doing the content and he's pretty happy that it's getting delivered in the internet. It's working. Okay, good job, Jace. Thank you for making her do videos for us. We talked about the art direction. We talked about the music. Well, you guys did dive into Web3, which is a more complex space when it comes to the gaming mechanic of everything. So how do you guys think you guys are going to be implementing the blockchain technology into the game? Is there anything that we can find out?
Well, I can give you a little bit, but not too much. We're busy finalizing some negotiations. So we've been in a lot of conversations over the last, you know, few months. And I think, you know, we're finally at a decision now. We're going to be signing things probably this week, which means that there's some very, very, very exciting news coming up, you know, in the coming weeks, basically, about all of this. So I don't want to put too much out there just yet, but you know, we are forming new partnerships now, and I think that our players are going to be very happy about where we're taking all of this. So keep watching, basically, because there's going to be loads of news about, you know, about the different ways that we are using things, who we're working with, who is it. Oh my goodness, can you guess?
She's so good at teasing and keeping us on the hook. Like, I have a lot of question marks in my head now, and I have to wait. I have no choice. Maybe that's the actual technique that Moonfrost is doing. We're going to keep you guys on your toes. You'll never know what's going to come next.
Yeah.
Man.
Those hats.
Okay.
Yeah, what I will say though, just quickly before we move on, is that you know, our Frost Hunter licenses, we gave those out for free to all of our players. They didn't even know that they were going to be getting those at all. That was, I think, a very big surprise, big reward to maybe like our most dedicated players just for playing the game. We are going to be releasing a bunch of new different, you know, like items, licenses, things like that, which will give you access to different things in the game. So there's going to be a lot more information about that again in the coming weeks as well. So lots of good stuff coming up.
There she goes again, keeping us on our toes. Something to look forward to with the game. She's been teasing all of these surprises for us. So why don't we do a little surprise for her as well on this interview? I wanted to get your thoughts on. I'm gonna share my screen real quick.
Okay.
Yeah. I wanted to find out what your thoughts are for, can you see my...
Oh my goodness, yeah, I can see that.
Yes. So these were uploaded 3 to 4 years ago. And I hope nobody calls me out and calls me a stalker, because you literally type her name on YouTube and this is the first result that you will find. So how does we get... what do you feel looking at her old artwork?
Well, and I'm an artist. I've always been an artist, and I haven't seen this stuff in a while. But you know, this is my personal artwork. I stopped posting a lot of personal art a long while ago, and you know, especially when I started focusing on Oxalis and on building Moonfrost, my focus shifted in a very, very big way. But you know, art has been, you know, my whole life, basically. You know, creating things has been my whole life, and I'll never stop being a creative. So, I'm drawing a lot less now. I'm painting a lot less. All of those things. My focus is on, really, building something really solid and building something that is maybe a little bit different, but speaks to people in a very genuine way. So, all of what I used to do, feeds very much into, how I think about things creatively. And it was very important to me that Moonfrost feels like something special. Right? Like there's so many games out there that just look like a million other games. And then in between all of that, there's a few that really stand out, right? And those are the games that everyone is trying to clone. You end up with the games where people are like, Hades is a great example. Like how many games have we seen or people we talk to who are like, oh, I want to make something that looks like Hades. Like Hades looks cool. I want to make something that looks like Ari. I want to make something that looks like, these different things. If Moonfrost ends up being that, I'd be really, really happy. And all of this work that you see there, that is my history. That's my creative history, and all of that feeds into what we've done, definitely.
Oh, that's fantastic. Okay, pick one. We're gonna open one of these videos. Pick one.
Oh no, don't do that.
Okay, we won't do it then. Did you ever imagine that you would get to this point, like from looking at all of your old art to where you are now? Like, did it ever occur to you 3 to 4 years ago that I would become the boss witch one day?
I think I always wanted to do my own thing. Definitely wanted to do my own thing, and it was important to me to get the right experience so that I was at a point where I feel very confident about what I'm doing. And I am, especially when it comes to actually making games, like I'm very confident about my ability to create a good game. Definitely. When it comes to running the company, that's been something that has been a very big learning curve for me. But because I come from leadership positions before, there were sort of like aspects of that already. And I went into lead positions at studios because I wanted to be doing my own thing in the long run, definitely. So, I know it's not the path that a lot of creatives take, but it's definitely the right path for me. I think this was always inevitable, but it feels really good to be here. And I think to be making a game that I'm very proud of, like, in my entire career, this is the game that I'm the most proud of. And I've worked on a lot of games. So, and for that to be, my own, like that's awesome.
Let's say you could talk to your old self or like a reflection of other indie game devs out there. What advice would you give to these people or your younger self?
I think what I would say is it's going to be really hard. It's going to be very, very hard. And the best thing you can do is to not give up. And I've seen this as well with a lot of other founders. One of the big reasons why startups fail is because the founders give up, because you will end up facing stresses that are higher than anything you've faced before when you're running a studio. Definitely. And this is something that, consistently I hear from people who've, been running studios for years will say the same things. It comes with a lot of stress, definitely. But if you're building something for yourself, it's also, I think, probably the most rewarding and the most satisfied I've ever been making games. But don't give up. That's the biggest piece of advice I can give is like, when it gets hard, keep going. Find ways to keep going, because otherwise you get left behind or you'll fail.
That's really solid advice. Thank you for sharing. Well, one more thing. I'd also like to hear, maybe you have something to share with the rest of the Web3 community, because I really think that the games here, you're not really sure what you're going to get these days. And I genuinely did enjoy my experience playing Moonfrost. So maybe you guys have something to say about the space, pain points that could be improved as well.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different things. I think probably before that, what I will say is that as you've been talking about, where the game is now, we've basically been in different alpha releases over the last, year, I guess. We've been releasing these various alphas, and this alpha is now, this is going to be this is the last of our alphas. But that does mean that there's a very big release coming up for the game, and it should be something that players are very, very excited about. So we are, going properly into early access soon, and there's going to be all sorts of new features, rebalancing, a lot of different things for people to get excited about. And I think probably what we need in this space is for people to be excited about the games and just what the games are bringing, right? I see a lot of hype around just the idea of NFT games and just NFTs as themselves. And I think that this sort of like over focus on NFTs has been part of the reason why we face a lot of backlash. So what I would really like is for players not to play the game because it's an NFT game, but to play the game because it's a good game, because it's a game that was made for you, because you enjoy this game, because you like different aspects of the game. What the tech brings to the game is a whole nother layer, right? That's almost like a separate sort of thing in a way. We're going to be doing a lot of very, very interesting things with NFTs. And I think hopefully it's things that are going to get not just Web3 players excited, but Web2 players excited as well. Because in my mind, they're still kind of like, the same thing. Like, they're gamers, right? I want gamers playing this game, and I want gamers being invested in this game. And hopefully, if they are investing their time and their energy in this game, we can give something back to them as well. Right. And that's something that I think hopefully players who might not even be aware of the NFTs or of the value that they can, extract from the game. Hopefully that's something that excites them over time as they learn about it. But I think that's something that I would really like to see change over the next year or whatever it is as a sort of Web3 community, I guess, is us talking more about just the games as games. Right? Because we have to fight this negative sentiment. We have to acknowledge that the negative sentiment exists for a reason. But the only way for good games and solid projects to thrive in this space is if we can drive that forward, if we can drive forward positive messages, if we can get traditional gamers coming in and playing this space and playing in the space, not being scared or worried because they've heard all these terrible things about NFTs. That is something that I think will only happen within the Web3 community, and it's something that everyone has to get behind, and it will help all of us. It'll help us as devs. It'll help you as players. It's going to help us create a lot of like new and exciting things, and this could very much be the future of gaming. But we need to help get rid of the negativity, definitely.
I wholeheartedly agree with you there. Well, that is my final question. So I'd like to open the floor to you. If there's anything you'd like to promote or say to the people who are watching right now, please go ahead and do so.
Awesome. Well, like I said, we've got a lot of really, really exciting things coming up for Moonfrost. There's going to be a lot of really exciting announcements coming up over the coming weeks. And especially as we switch out of alpha and into, proper early access for the game, we're really reaching a point now where, we're not going to be wiping players' data and things like that anymore. So, this is the future of the game. There's a lot of good things coming there. So please keep an eye on our socials, all of that. Play the game if you haven't played it, watch videos and message us, right? Like we want to see all your content. We want to see all of that. So we've got that. There's going to be a little bit of time probably where you can't be playing the game. If you feel like you can't wait, you can listen to the soundtrack. The soundtrack is out on Spotify already. Maybe you can share a link for that in the description or something like that. But if you just search for Moonfrost, you should be able to find the soundtrack. You can follow my channel as well. I'll be sharing as much sort of behind the scenes stuff as I can. Just generally, we are so excited about this game. We really, really are. It's coming from a very genuine place, and thank you to everyone who's supported us so far. we've got a lot more coming.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Gina, our boss witch. We had a lot of fun in this interview, and we look forward to seeing more from Moonfrost as well as Oxalis Studios. So again, thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you.
I hope you guys enjoyed this interview that we had with the boss witch. As always, guys, don't forget to subscribe to Polemos, and we'll see you guys in the next video. GG's.